And a deepening question is something what you have said and which I have sort of found a meaning or curiosity, and I ask you, to deepen that. And in a way, what happens through that deepening is that we both create more and more of a common vernacular, a common understanding. We just get close to that process.
So Andy, in this chapter, you talk about process being more important than content. What do you mean here? Like, help us understand this better.
Yeah, there's a degree to which when one is letting the questions influence how this dialogue emerges, it's a bit more like an improvisation. So it's not about I have content and you have content, and now we're competing with who has, more convincing arguments. It's far more, hey, we're going to let whatever comes up between us be emergent, and then that will guide us.
Okay, so I know in the last chapter we talked about questions. How the whole book's been building, right?
Yeah.
How do you bring, like, how did you connect those things, or is there a connection there that
There's certainly a question. There's certainly a connection with questions, because in the process, of course, like these things I'll call deepening questions. And a deepening question is something what you have said and which I have sort of found a meaning or curiosity, and I ask you, to deepen that. And in a way, what happens through that deepening is that we both create more and more of a common vernacular, a common understanding. We just get close to that process. And so I will often say, asking these very simple questions can create really deep and meaningful interactions.
Okay. And again, I guess this goes back to the skill of asking good questions. You're talking about deepening. Is there, well, I mean, one of the things that I think both of us have been confronted with our experience abroad is those cultural contexts and those cultural differences, which, obviously are maybe more dramatic when you're talking about like you in Japan and me in France and China and that. But sometimes just in a group of people, and there's just individual stories behind it, where the digging doesn't really work, or the way of digging is seen poorly, or like an attack or an affront, or like digging into your soul where you're not welcome.
Yeah.
How do you see your way through that when you say if the process is more important than the content? How do you see your way through that to make it the most important thing and still connect?
Yeah, well, so where you're speaking, or what you're speaking to, is something where if the context isn't set for that sort of interaction, then obviously it has the potential to become difficult. I was in a training last week. I made a snide remark out of love and joy and playfulness, and it really hit the person the wrong way, and then they just emotionally just broke down. So the process then was me shutting everything down, going to them, holding them, and apologizing. So I just said, hey, whatever we were doing till now is irrelevant. Process is now this. This is where we are. So that's, again, this surrendering to what presents itself. I could have said, hey, that's okay, let her cry, we got to get it forward. And then that moment would have stuck with us the entire training. So we needed to like ground ourselves, make peace with that, and then continue. So that's where it went wrong.
It's nice to know that you also make mistakes still.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I don't feel so bad about if I make them.
But the thing is you take those risks.
Right.
Yeah, you take risk, and part of my practice today is really being me, celebrating who I am, revealing who I am, and then saying that, wow, me isn't always going to be easy for another. And I don't blame them for having a problem with me. I'll cry and say, yeah, I'm sorry, that's also me, and take whatever responsibility I can to, calm that. And we got closer through it for as far as I felt it.
Cool. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Can you explain the example and the homework for this chapter to me? Just explain what you want to get out of it, what it's about.
This is, again, just working on the deepening questions. There's certain skills in this book which, if you just take that one thing away, it'll really make your life a lot easier. And the deepening question is basically all you do is you hear what someone has to say. you hear them add a value to something, like it's too difficult, or it's really hard, or I'm not sure if it's really possible. And you like simply look at the word where you feel a weight that's been given to it that hasn't really been fleshed out completely, or you haven't heard what's behind the really or the to, and then you engage that and just say, so when you say really, what does that mean? What's really there? Or when you say it's not possible, what does possible mean? And these deepening questions are really valuable to the person, because what you're doing is you're facilitating their thinking. And they oftentimes will not have thought through a lot of their presumptive wording, or the things that they've said but they haven't given thought to. So when you say, what do you mean possible? And you ask in a very authentic way, that person will discover a lot of new things. And you're with them in that discovery, and that's the beauty of it. You share it. And that's what I find to be I've had the choice to make, how do I want to interact with the world? And I've chosen to be in this type of interaction. I just find it more fulfilling.
Okay. Let me ask just a curiosity question here. So if somebody were to practice this, would you recommend practicing it with somebody you're in a close relationship with, or like a total stranger in a bar, right? Yeah. Where's the safest place, or maybe there isn't, but where would you recommend somebody start practicing this?
Well, the person in the bar might be safer than the person you partnered with. So, the answer to that would be where you sense the most openness. So I'll do it with random people on the street, and Ronnie, my wife, she'll be like, Andy, what the hell? Like, how did you feel that comfortable? And it was a deep sense of, oh, this person is receptive and open from just how they present themselves. But yes, in answer to your question, to make it a little bit more direct, I would tend to go for more meaningful interactions with people that I'm closest to, because they won't misinterpret it, they won't get confused by me, and I'll often, when I'm helping someone, I'll tell them, if you do not usually interact with your partner this way, then let them know. Just say, hey, I read this book. Is it okay if I just try and interact and do something a little different? And again, we go back to the chapter of priming.
Right.
It'll make it much easier for them then to accept it.
Right. The whole how and what and why
Yeah,
whole
all
thing
of that
as well, that first toolbox one.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thanks.